everybody!
Hey, welcome back to Two Fat Idiots Talk About Movies, because one of us is too lazy to come up with a fucking name for a show.
I just call them movie reviews.
How you doing, Jared?
What's up, Sean?
Not much. We went and saw a couple of movies a couple of days ago, and we shot a review.
And then your opinion changed.
My opinion shifted because I found out more facts about a movie. This isn't something that happens usually, but we'll get into that when we get into that. But the first movie we saw was American Assassin.
Yes, it was.
Do you remember anything about this movie? Because I honestly remember, like, the bare bones basic. I remember not liking the main character and Michael Keaton giving a pretty fucking hilariously awesome performance. But that's just because he's Michael Keaton.
I remember Scott Akins dying very quickly after they built him up.
Yeah, our main
Spoilers.
bad guy. Yeah, the bad guy dies in like less than 30 seconds after he meets our hero.
No, he wasn't the bad guy. That was Scott Akins was the one who did.
Oh no, he was the rival agent that they were training.
Yeah.
He died like a bitch.
Yeah, he died in like 10 seconds. Poor Scott Akins.
Like on his first field assignment for this group.
Yeah. Poor Weapon 11.
This guy just can't catch a break.
No, he can't.
So, American Assassin, I said it last time, I'll say it again. This was boring. I mean, I wish I could say something better. I've heard other people talk about it and be like, oh, perfectly fun action movie, but I was so bored during most all of it. And a big problem comes from the unrelatability of our main character, who's pretty much the personification of that edgy 15-year-old everyone knew in high school, who's like, I don't play well with others. Something tragic happened to me in my past. That's why I don't trust anyone now. I play by my own rules. And I'm just like, every time this person turns around, they prove why they shouldn't be part of this team.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much stated by the guy heading this that this guy doesn't work. He's not mentally stable. He will not work well in the field. And at every turn, he proves that statement right.
Yeah.
But somehow ends up being the hero because he didn't follow the rules.
Yeah, it was like I'd say it was like just. It is hard for me to get into a movie where the main character is just somebody that you shouldn't like.
Well, we just got done talking about Punisher trailer that came out. Having an unlikable protagonist isn't a bad thing sometimes. You can sort of pull it off. You can do a pretty good Punisher story where you have an unlikable protagonist, i.e. Frank Castle.
Yeah.
But the problem is you have to have something we want to see happen for that character. He's got to grow or change somehow. And this guy doesn't.
No.
He starts out as this mule-headed prick, and he ends as a mule-headed prick.
Dude, I think this movie, the funniest thing about this movie is, I guess I've just gotten really good at calling shit in movies.
You seem to have gotten this innate ability, having watched shitty movies lately. You're just able to sit there and go, they're about to do this. Then they're going to do this, and then this is going to happen. You actually surprised me because you pretty much called the ending of this. I had a completely different set of bad ideas for it. Because when it came down to the wire, I was betting money that the trainer, Michael Keaton's character, would be in on the bad guy's plot to blow everything up.
No, I just said the bad guy once trained under Michael Keaton and had issues.
Yes, you did.
And
which, to be fair, that was pretty obvious that was going to happen from like the first time that he came out.
When they showed him and he was white, I was like, oh, he totally trained under Michael Keaton.
That was your big clue? He's like, yeah, there's a white dude in Istanbul. He's going to be the bad guy trained under Keaton.
No, like when the bad guy showed up and
I don't
like
remember
just
Istanbul or whatever.
He just like, it was like he was American. I was like, oh, he totally trained under Michael Keaton and it went rogue.
That was like 20 minutes into the movie when you first meet him. And you called it and I was like, yeah, you're probably. I'm not going to say you're wrong because you're not.
And I was completely right. And then when he went, when it was revealed what his big plan was, I leaned over to Sean. I was like, you know, this is his big plan because Battleship was this guy's last movie, and he's still mad about it. So he's trying to blow up Battleship.
I don't even think he's driving out to the Sixth Fleet or whatever, training out there, and he's like, "You wouldn't even let Rihanna say fuck in that movie? Go to hell!" Oh God. We had fun making fun of this movie.
Yeah.
We had to be quiet about it because there were a lot of other people in this theater, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's like this guy just doesn't get it. Like, we had half the cast of X-Men Origins Wolverine in this thing.
Kind of did.
Because we had Weapon 11 and Gambit.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
As our leads, no less. And
it's like, oh, these guys just...
Christ on a biscuit.
Right.
So, it starts out, this guy is on this little beach in wherever, I don't remember, the Bahamas maybe.
Yeah.
Trying to propose to his girlfriend, and he pops the question, he goes to get drinks.
And then they're immediately shot by terrorists.
While he's at the drinks, his terrorists crop up, and they just go, bah, 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 bah!
A beach resort in the Caribbean just seems like a random place for a terrorist attack.
Well, I mean, you know, it's terrorism. It's supposed to be random and disturb people by going, "Oh, terrorism! It can be anywhere at any time!"
I don't think a terrorist cell would focus on, like, tourists on, like, a...
you never know. I mean, maybe the terrorist cell leader tried to get a Sandals resort, and he couldn't get one with a good oceanfront view, so he was like, "I hate you all. Death to you! Death to Sandals! I mean, America!" I'm not using the jihad to make up personal vendettas like I did with Billy, the guy who beat me up and took my lunch money every day for 6 goddamn years. Just because he was the first, he was no coincidence. Don't look at me!
It was fun. This is like one of those B-rate
You
actions.
say that, but like I said, there was no reason for me to care about anybody.
I think they should watch it just to watch Keaton.
I wouldn't say that, because if you want to do that, he's way better in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he's delivering a good performance, but it's not like the best or anything. It's just like an average, great performance I would expect out of Michael Keaton, because
when he
he's fucking Michael Keaton.
or when he Mike Tyson's the guy though.
Oh yeah, and he bites off a chunk of a dude's ear. That wasn't half bad. Yeah, there's a scene where Michael Keaton's getting tortured and the dude's like ripping at his fingernails. It's like, I love this shit. Come on, fucking do it. And it's like, where's your team? Tell me where they are and I'll make it quick. He's like, okay, give me.
And then he fucking Mike Tyson.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. And I bites the dude's ear.
Yeah. Straight Mike Tyson's the guy.
Oh god, it's so out of left field. It's hilarious.
Like I said, this is one of those, like, you catch it on TV. You don't spend money.
Yeah,
on this thing.
I wouldn't. Another big problem I had with this was the love interest that they had for no reason.
Oh, the
Which,
one that
if
I
you
called being a double agent?
Yeah, you even had to think for a second as to who the hell I was talking about, because she leaves so little of an impression. The biggest impression she left on me was the fact that she was trying to sneak in and free Michael Keaton, and like the guy who put an assassination out on her uncle was crawling away.
Yeah, well, like, she was a double agent, but for, like, a different agency, so...
Yeah.
She wasn't even, like... I mean, no double agents are good, but she wasn't, like working for the bad guys, so it was just kind of like...
Whoa. What about American agents that have infiltrated, like, Russian or Taliban? Are you saying those double agents aren't good?
No, I'm just saying, like, she was, like, a double agent who...
Wait, are you saying that there's more complexity and ideas behind spying and being in a network of web of lies and sleuth, that you can't just boil it down to pure black and white good versus evil?
No.
Yeah. Thank God we don't have to think about those things when we watch American Assassin. Yeah, this movie sucked. I got nothing else to say. I mean,
I'd say give it.
Where
like,
you see a dumb
watch
action
on
movie,
TV,
I see like Atomic Blonde is a good dumb action movie.
That was a really good dumb action.
It's a really good dumb action movie, but it's a dumb action movie. I mean, let's face facts. I went back and rewatched it not long ago, and I'll be willing to admit there are some grievances that some people have with this movie. They're perfectly legitimate. The twist that she's like a triple agent for the Americans is kind of easy to understand, especially when you watch it not getting swept up in really great fight choreography and gunplay that I could understand and see what was happening.
Yeah.
Which, the first time I saw it, I got swept up in stuff like that. I was like, man, this is really great action. I can see what's going on. I understand the characters' motivations. I understand where they are in respect to one another. I get this. And then I see something like American Assassin, where it's a 15-second scene, and you've got like 10 cuts to show one real quick gun battle. And it's just like, why the fuck did you need those? I feel like I am motion sick, and I only watched 15 seconds of footage. And it's the same problem I have with like the Bourne movies now, and all the Takens after Taken 1. And it just, I don't like that action. I'm sick of that kind of action.
I was never a Bourne fan.
The first Bourne is honestly really goddamn good. I would recommend you go back and give the first one a rewatch. It's a lot of fun. The second one is decent, and everyone after that is crap. The second one tied up the first one's loose ends, and was like, yeah, there's a little bit here. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we won't. No big deal. But the second one ends everything nicely, and unlike this movie, where it ends with Michael Keaton meeting the woman who constantly sponsored this shithead.
Like, where is he?
Yeah, they're sitting there talking about the aftermath of this.
He's stopping an international incident.
Yeah, they sit down and they look at each other. Speaking, where's our? I don't even remember the guy's name. Where's white guy?
Where's Dylan O'Brien?
Where's Dylan O'Brien? It's like, how the fuck should I know? I'm in a hospital. I thought you knew where he was. I didn't know where he was. They're like, oh. And then they look at the TV, and the Iranian general is like, America's evil, we're going to prepare a war against them. And the last thing you see is him in the elevator behind the general. And it's like, that man's going to accidental a war. Accidental. And I was just like, this guy fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that we've...
When Matt Damon could kick your ass, you might have problems.
Well, now that we've talked about that, let's go to the second movie.
Yeah, I guess that's all we got. So, American Assassin, wait for it on TV.
Yep.
I can't recommend anything stronger than that, I'm afraid.
Alright.
For Mother, I started out...
Mother! We're part 2.
This is part 2. Let me say first off, I really like this movie. I still really like this movie. Unfortunately, it wasn't what I thought was going to happen. I like Darren Aronofsky a lot. Black Swan is a really good movie.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. And he also made probably one of my all-time favorite movies ever, The Wrestler.
Mickey Rourke?
Yeah.
That's a really good movie.
That is a really good movie. It's really, really great, very powerful movie. A lot of feels.
That was like Mickey Rourke's return.
It was, honestly. And that movie made me cry. Like, open, unabashedly, sitting there just bawling like a baby, cry at the end of that movie. I was a bitch at the end of that. I was, man. I was just like, you fucking right, you retired. Give him the ram jam. You give him the ram jam. I really enjoyed that. And so when I heard Mother was coming out, I didn't hear a lot about it, and I purposefully avoided hearing about it because I was like, I want to go into this pretty much blind.
The trailer gave you nothing.
The trailer gives you nothing, but I like that about the trailer. It gives you enough intrigue to where you're like, what the hell's going on? I know who's in it. I know who's directing it. And I like what he does mostly.
Yeah.
So I go into this completely blind. By the end of it, it starts out, and there's a lot of biblical symbolism.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, okay, there's a lot of biblical symbolism, but this can be translated into something else. Because I know this guy can do deeper stuff, immediately I disregarded my first thought was that he's going to be making an allegory of the Bible and just doing that in cinema in a very pocketed format.
Yeah.
And instead, I ended up concocting this idea about it being a symbol of like the creative process and being a creator, how everything means something in terms of creation and creativity.
Yeah.
And all that really worked. And then I started hearing everybody else is like, yeah, the religious symbolism is really, really obvious. I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't think that's part of it. And then I read an interview with him.
Oh, yeah.
And he straight up says, like, yeah, I'm gonna recreate the Bible and shit. And he talks with, like, this Brooklyn cabbie accent. And I was just like, really, that's it? Like this film student level bullshit? That was the entire thing? I was just like, I mean, that's fine. You made a really good movie, but fuck, that was it?
Yeah.
And it was just like, God, my first, most obvious guess about what was going on that you should never have, especially when watching a movie that requires you to think, was the right answer? And I immediately was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think though, in this movie's defense, if you can do what you did though, and like you know, you get your own message from it, then
right?
It still works perfectly fine.
It does, but there's kind of an unwritten rule that once the creator of a project comes out and says, this is what I was meaning to do. This is what this means. This is what was going here. This is what I was going with. You can have your own theory and your own deeper interpretation to it, but it's no longer valid as a potential theory for what it means.
So basically, this guy should have just avoided interviews, in your opinion.
I don't think he should have straight up says like, yeah, it's a story about like the Old Testament, the New Testament, and Jesus and shit. And that's how he talks.
It's about Jesus.
And how, well, it's not
he's
overtly.
Not reading this Bible right.
Well, it's more about religion in general. Javier Bardem is very obviously the allegory for God. Jennifer Lawrence is the interpretation of Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And essentially it's the idea of God creating the Earth and how Earth is building itself up and it's creating its own things and it's making it look great. But the more people come into it, what's his name? The first guy that shows up. Ed Helms.
Yeah.
Ed Helms shows up, and that's obviously supposed to be Adam. And having all this extra knowledge now about what he was intending, it all just looks like he's basically everything is just super on the nose, and it's all just him going, get it.
Yeah, how his kids are basically Cain and Abel.
Right, and one of them gets knocked in the head, and he's got that permanent mark on him, and how he killed his brother, and the mark it left on the world, i.e. the blood constantly in that one spot.
Yeah.
The more people coming in trying to set up their own thing, the people coming in painting her house when she's saying, no, leave it alone. I'm doing shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God, all this was working so much better with building my own idea of what was happening about, and even at the end where things just go completely totally, we're going into spoilers, right?
Yep. Spoilers.
Okay. So spoilers at this point. If you want a good recommendation, I would say go see it, but just understand that your first guess is going to be the right guess of what's happening.
Looking back on it now, like, because you had told me, like, your theories and stuff on that.
Right.
Looking back now, knowing that it was, like, symbolism for the Bible, the good Lord, It's very obvious.
It's super on the nose, and that's kind of the big problem with it, especially if you know what's going on with them. But yeah, essentially they keep bringing people in, and the house and the area is obviously supposed to represent Earth, Jennifer Lawrence's Mother Earth, or nature, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And Javier Bardem is constantly wanting to share what's going on, what he's doing. People coming in to be with him, to idolize him, worship him. And he's like, yes, let this happen. And she's like, no, I don't like these people here. They're fucking things up. And they don't care. And the basic message is, people are shit. And I'm just like, I was kind of with you for most of this, because, again, I understood about auteur theory and the creative process and how difficult that can be, because you can interpret things a lot of different ways in this. At the very end, which is, I would probably say, the most interesting part, is where he puts out his new book or whatever, and you could very obviously interpret that as like the New Testament. Like, his last book was the Old Testament, and a lot of people liked it, but he hadn't done anything, but there's a lot of people who still like him. And he puts out the new book, which is obviously like the New Testament in that respect. And people just flock in, and they reinterpret it to be what they mean, and what it means for them, and how they can extort power over people with like the ritualistic killings happening with like his publisher. Walking around in a circle shooting people in the fucking head, and people putting people in cages and shit. And it's just like, all the while I kept thinking, I was like, okay, where are we going with this? Because this, again, having not done any research for this, I was like, okay, so basically this is interpreting people taking his creation and misconstruing it, or changing it to fit their own wants and desires.
Yeah.
Breaking it down and destroying it, or reinterpreting it.
So I'm guessing like the ending was his way of saying that the world needs to be destroyed.
Essentially, yeah, that's it. It turns into like a war zone in the house.
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be the interpretation of man's war on itself.
Yeah.
How we can't look past that, and then of course he has a son that he gives to the world, and the people kill it and rip it apart, and some take small parts of it with them, and yeah, there's dead babies in this, by the way. It gets really, really weirdly graphic, where like the baby's pissing all over everybody, and they snap its neck, and
oh man,
it wasn't as weird as Train Spotting was. If you ever watched that, that's Danny Boyle made a hell of a movie about heroin, baby. I highly recommend you watch Train Spotting if you haven't, but that also has a dead baby in that. And I was like, that was way more shocking in Train Spotting, just because it was more human, and it dealt with humans reacting to this. But it's all just very obvious that that was supposed to be like Jesus and his interpretation of that, and then finally, all the while, it's been cutting to this heart beating with her closing her eyes and concentrating, and it's like blackening and dying.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be like the heart of the world dying. The more man invades and destroys and kills, until it finally boils down to her getting extra super grade A pissed and blowing up the house. And everyone in it, i.e. nature wiping out humanity and reclaiming itself. And finally the creator using the last bits of nature to restart again.
Yep.
And again, I interpreted this with no knowledge of it, interpreted this as like a creative process, and how it is to be somebody who makes something. You don't always work it out first. When you put something new out, people will sometimes get really, really rabid about it. They'll swarm you, and the attention's great, but there are people who want to tear it down, destroy it, smash it into the ground, just rip it to shreds.
Yep.
And there are people who want to build it up, praise it, and make the next great thing to them, which is great and all, And then, basically, if something reaches a huge popularity, it caves in on itself, and you have to start again. And that's what I took away from it, knowing nothing. Because I thought, there has to be something deeper. And this is one of the few times I've ever walked away from a movie and said, maybe it's me. Maybe I didn't interpret this. And so I started looking into it, and I started thinking, and I was like, this could mean this could mean this. And all of a sudden, I had a whole bunch of stuff that clicked into the right spots. And I had this entire theory about it. And I was like, great, okay, I understand it. And then I read it, and I'm like, really, Darren? This... I don't want to say this movie isn't worth going to see, because honestly, it is well shot. There's a lot of really great stuff, even if you...
The acting in it is fantastic.
Oh, God, yeah. Jennifer Lawrence...
so good.
She's good. I like her in this. I don't think it had to be Jennifer Lawrence. I mostly think that was like a studio thing where it's like, we got this Jennifer Lawrence chick, she's a big name. She'll be a big draw. Because, like...
Obviously, this movie did not do well at all.
No, which... part of me understands knowing what I know now. Because there's not a lot to it. But at the same time, I'm glad Paramount put this out. Because usually you don't expect something like this, with this kind of crazy batshit premise and stuff in it, to be funded by a major film studio. Usually it's more of the indie art house scene that will pick up something like this. So for Paramount, which hasn't exactly got the best stuff on the market right now, to pick up something like this and take a huge risk like this, I kind of gotta applaud him. Because while I was by no means, and still am not upset that I watched this movie, it's still really greatly shot. I love the fact that he makes movies on film, so it's got that nice grain to it and that filter. And you can tell it's a natural thing. It's not something that was done post-production. And I'm just like, I like that I saw it, but I wish... Part of me is sad that I listened to what you had to say, Mr. Aronofsky, because I looked at this and got something deeper out of it. And then you come along and it's like, yeah, I didn't mean that at all. It was about Jesus and a Bible and shit. And it was just like, well, that... okay, then. That's fine. We'll go with, like, the most blatant symbolism you can. And... yeah, I have to bump this down from being something I would definitely say go see to catch it on video. I mean, I honestly can't, because there's not enough meat once you understand what the basic premise is.
Unfortunately, I think by the time we release this, it'll be out of most theaters.
Probably.
It just didn't do well.
It didn't. Which, again, I understand, but at the same time, I want people who do this kind of batshit insane stuff to do more batshit insane stuff.
Yeah.
I just wish there was something deeper there. And I guess that's on me.
Well,
misconstruing, and I guess I should just go with my absolute base ideas of what's going on. And just think no further than that. Because chances are, I'm right. Just like I am every single time. Except when I think I'm not, and even then I'm proven right in the end.
I don't know, man. I think because we watch so many of these, we've just kind of... This is just kind of us. We've gotten into this pattern where we very easily...
Well, that's kind of the thing.
Starting to, like... You know, normally, like you knew before, I loved cheesy action movies.
Right.
And just now it's getting harder for me because we've seen so many.
Well, it's one of those
movies
things.
that's
Once you hit that point of saturation, you hit your limit for being able to just essentially shut your brain off. I'm envious of people who can do that. Like of people who can literally just sit there and go, Transformers 5, take me away.
No.
I honestly envy people who can do that.
Like, yeah, I honestly, people, no, it wasn't that bad. I
Yeah.
want to get mad and get in an argument with them, but then I stop myself and I'm like, okay, this is something, I watch a lot of movies,
Right.
more than the normal guy, and it's just,
Well, that's when
I gotta
that's kind of
take
the
a
thing.
step back. And
once you start applying the critical eye, it's hard to shut that off.
yeah.
And we're by no means saying that there's not stupid shit out there. I mean, we watch the Marvel movies and stuff and enjoy those for the most part. I have my own misgivings with them, but I mean, I think they're fun.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yay, superheroes saving the day, and I can cheer along with that. So, I mean, everybody's got something.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something. That the old saying goes, there's no accounting for taste, and that's just kind of where it goes. Eventually, you just have to know what you like and understand your like isn't going to be somebody else's like.
Yep.
Because I mean, there's shit you enjoy the hell out of the Fast and the Furious movies.
I think they're fun.
I
You earned that paycheck, Tyrese.
I couldn't get past the first one. I was just like, I hate them all, and I want them to crash and die.
I think you would have fun at 5.
Probably because you said that's when they like drop the stupid
Really?
moving gang thing. They start being like international spies that use supercars to do things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. This really got marketed as like a horror movie,
Yeah, well,
which it's not by like any stretch, and that's also the other problem is this has aspects of good horror. There's a lot of really good tension. If you have anxiety problems, do not go see this movie.
no.
There's Jesus Christ. I used to have anxiety with crowds, and I was getting some really really heavy anxiety pangs. I'm just like, can we back? I need this to stop soon, because I 100% understood what was going through the mind when they do in some of those tight shots, and there's just the chatter in the background getting louder and louder and louder until basically it's overwhelming you.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, doesn't stop soon. But there's good aspects here, but everything is surface level. And that's kind of where we're at with movies nowadays. Everything has to be done for the lowest common denominator. Which is why shit with jump scares works well instead of like actual well-crafted suspense
True.
and drama to it being horrifying.
Yep.
Like you could never make like Poltergeist or The Exorcist today, because
They've tried and it's turned out horrible.
exactly because the audience they don't like stuff like The Omen.
They tried that one a couple of years ago. It didn't work too
Did
well.
they? Oh, I don't remember that.
It's been like 10 years now almost.
That's not a couple of years ago. That's like a decade ago. But yeah, that's the problem. Is we're at a point where the public has become so saturated with the idea that jump scares are what should scare you, and that like quiet suspense and dread is just something you should just sit there and tune out for.
No thanks. No thank you. Alright, now that
we've thoroughly depressed ourselves with the death of cinema,
Uh,
what did you guys think? Did you go see Mother and concoct any insane ideas, or did you hear the Brooklyn taxi cab filmmaker talk about this movie before you went to go see it?
and you completely cut the metaphor.
And completely and totally destroy any metaphors.
Alright.
Leave a little comments down below.
Then go watch us play a dad dating simulator.
Dating dads!
All right, guys. Until next time, we will see you guys later.
Later.